Welcome to Journey to Esquire, the podcast. I'm Jocelyn Hardrick, founder and president of Diversity Access Pipeline, Inc., the company behind this podcast and other great programs, like Journey to Esquire Scholarship and Leadership Program, which provides $2,000 cash scholarships to third-year law students and internships to second-year law students, along with leadership training and mentors. And Journey to Esquire, the blog, which provides insightful articles to help navigate you through law school and beyond. Find out more on our website, www.journeytoesquire.com.
Today, we pass the mic to attorney Danielle Martin. Attorney Martin is a graduate of Stetson University College of Law. Attorney Martin currently serves as the assistant city attorney for the city of St. Petersburg, where she practices labor and employment law. In this episode, she will discuss the challenges of diversity that she has faced being an African-American woman in the workplace. Thank you for tuning in to Journey to Esquire, and we hope that you enjoy this episode.
I'm Danielle Martin. I'm an assistant city attorney for the city of St. Petersburg. I practice labor and employment defense. My other practice areas include public records law and the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for joining us today on Journey to Esquire, the podcast. So tell our guests why you decided to become a lawyer.
So why I decided to become a lawyer is, as a kid, I was always fascinated with a lot of these civil rights cases. My dad and I traveled the country. We visited pretty much every African-American history museum. And I loved learning about Brown versus Board of Education and other big civil rights cases. And I became a lawyer because I wanted to effectuate change similar to those cases. So that's how, ever since I was a little girl, why I wanted to become a lawyer.
Very cool. So from when you were a little girl all the way to actually applying to law school, because I had a similar story. I wanted to be a lawyer since I was about 9 years old. And so, I did everything I could to just always ask people, what should I be doing? They're like, get good grades, stay in school. So now we're at the application part of the process. You have either you're in college or just graduated. Can you talk a little bit about how that worked for you?
Yes. So for me, I went to the University of South Florida. I completed my undergrad in 3 years. So I actually started applying to law school in my second year of college. I didn't necessarily know everything that entailed of what I should be doing. But I think the biggest thing that really helped me was having a mentor, someone that could guide me. So I talked to other students that had applied to law school, as well as I went through a program called Blackstone. They were an LSAT prep company, but they also helped with the application process, with your personal statement, and also after law school as well. I think that program really helped me to learn how my application could become competitive. I know another things that I did, I know I wanted to stay in the Tampa Bay area, so I actually visited Stetson, and I became very acquainted with the Dean of Admissions at Stetson, so that way I can really hone into what Stetson was looking for.
Oh, nice. Can you tell me a little bit more about Blackstone? Because I've heard of that before, and I think I went to the website. So you're saying they helped you with LSAT prep, and they have these other programs that walk you through the application process.
Yes. So Mimi is a small-owned company owned by a husband and wife who are both attorneys. They have an office near USF, and each semester they do LSAT prep. But Mimi also walks you through personal statements. She provides you examples, as well as she's willing to look at your personal statement and provide edits. I was with the program for about 6 months. I studied for the LSAT 6 months, as well as preparing my personal statement.
Oh, nice. Good to know. Because Journey to Esquire, as you know, we work with third-year law students and second year now. We do have some programs open to 1Ls, but we also eventually want to reach out to college students looking to apply. So that's going to be a great resource. Thank you for telling us about that.
Mm-hmm.
So once you got into law school, did you enjoy it? Was it what everything you thought it was going to be?
I did enjoy law school. I would say not the first year. The first year was very difficult for me in the fact that it's much different in structure-wise than undergrad. In undergrad, you take exams, you have feedback throughout the semester, whereas law school is just one exam at the end. So that was a hard adjustment for me. But once I think I got into my 2L and my 3L year, and I became build relationships with different professors, and I learned what classes I liked, then I began to enjoy law school.
Oh, nice. And of course, I'm assuming you ultimately end up going to Stetson University College of Law.
Yes.
Okay, good. And so now you made it through the first year, which is tough for everyone for the same reasons that you said that I struggled with that too. And you're like in your 3L year, thinking about what you want to do next, where you want to practice. Can you talk a little bit about your job search during and after law school?
So during law school, there weren't as many opportunities for summer associate positions. The economy wasn't great. So a lot of us had to apply to unpaid fellowships or different avenues for job searches. I know for myself, while I was in law school, I applied to jobs, like at least one job every week. But I know it was very difficult when you're first coming out of law school because you have no experience. So the employer has to be able to or be willing to train you. I didn't necessarily have any success with that. So after I graduated and I was studying for the bar exam, I reached out to one of our career development staff, and she actually told me about a program called Bridge to Practice. And it was a fellowship which places you with a government agency throughout the Tampa Bay area, and you actually receive a stipend. I want to say it was maybe around $1,500. And it was a 3-month fellowship designed to, it's a postgraduate fellowship designed to get you skills and possibly a recommendation to a different employer. I went in when I started my Bridge to Practice fellowship with the city of St. Petersburg. I went in with no expectation of a job. I worked really hard. And after the 3-month fellowship, they decided to hire me as an assistant city attorney. And in the 3 months, I received my bar results.
Oh,
and
nice.
And then later on, I became an assistant city attorney, and I've been here almost 5 years.
Oh, nice. So you've had 2 local resources that really helped you out that I haven't heard of. And I've been here like over 10 years. So I'm so glad to hear about these 2 programs and share it with our listeners. And so even though you had that particular track to get into the city of St. Petersburg, at some point, did you have a sense of what area of practice you wanted to get into? And how did you choose that? Yes.
So I know I wanted to do labor and employment because while I was at Stetson, I did the in-house counsel internship, and I was placed at my undergrad institution, the University of South Florida, in their general counsel's office. And the 2 attorneys that I was assigned to primarily do work for, they did labor and employment. I really enjoyed shadowing them and working on assignments for them. And getting to know how I could get involved in the practice area. Before that, I don't think I had a clear indication of what practice area I wanted to really specialize in. But I will say after that internship, as well as taking the class Employment Discrimination, the combination of the 2 is how I know I wanted to specialize in labor and employment law.
Oh, nice. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of government institutions have their own in-house labor and employment practices. So like USF as a state school, there's different cities, because they employ so many people, that they typically have some people who do it in-house for smaller cases and then go out to firms for larger ones. So that's a good little tip for people who are interested, because I was interested in labor and employment, and I tried to get in everywhere, but it didn't quite work out for me. But, things ultimately work out. So that's always a good tip. You might not always be able to go right into what you want. And sometimes if the economy is bad or the situations or aren't opportunities aren't available right when you graduate, you just kind of have to stick with it and work your way into the area you want to get into. So speaking of, what advice would you have for new and future law students?
My advice for new and future law students is to, number one, be patient. Don't be discouraged. A lot of people will tell you no. It's not personal to you. It just may be the nature of their firm or the employer. They may not have the resources to hire someone directly out of law school, so don't take it personal. I will say be willing to be flexible. I know a lot of people don't necessarily practice in the area they want to practice in right away, but just be open. I started off doing workers' compensation. But the labor and employment attorney at the time would give me assignments. And so I made sure I did well. So when ultimately he left the city, I was able to step into that role. So it may not happen right away, but if you work hard and you always show initiative, you can get to where you want to be. Another advice tip I would say to watch your income to debt ratio. I was fortunate enough to attend Stetson on a full scholarship, but I know many people have many student loans, and I'm seeing a lot of new attorneys coming out with 6 figures in debt, maybe when they could have minimized that debt in law school, not living like a lawyer in law school, I should say.
Yes. Those are called the golden handcuffs when we get ourselves in so much debt and people end up taking jobs that pay well, but they don't like.
Right.
And they feel like they can't leave it because they have this huge debt they have to pay back. And
right.
I went to a state school, but I still had several thousand in student loans. But I lived like a student while I was a student, and I continued to live like a student for 5 years so that I can pay it all back. But this is great advice. Well, and you have a great story. It's so fortunate of you to get a full scholarship. And students need to realize those opportunities are available. And so they should really apply to more than one school, because you never know. You might love one school and it might be convenient for you, but if another one gives you a full scholarship, that could end up balancing out. So, and you're a St. Pete native or a Tampa Bay native, it sounds like?
I am a Tampa native.
Tampa native. Nice. And you've been able to get all these resources right here in Tampa Bay. And that's part of the reason why I started Journey Esquire, because I'm like, Tampa has some great, resources for law students and people interested in law. They have all these voluntary bar associations. They have great state institutions and private institutions right in their back door. But it can be overwhelming sometimes, if you're not from here, or even if you are, trying to get access to all of them. So, and then of course, great people who are willing to help out like yourself. So thank you so much again for agreeing to do this podcast. You're listening to Journey to Esquire, the podcast, where we explore the best ways to promote diversity, create access, and feed the legal pipeline with talented students of all backgrounds. Here's some guidance from today's guest. Now we're going to move to the part of the podcast where we talk about diversity, because, that's something that's very important to this organization and part of the point of this podcast, to talk about diversity in the legal field. So what has your experience been, Danielle, with racial diversity, even though the Tampa Bay area has a very good mix of people of different backgrounds from different countries, different races, different life experiences? Sometimes you get into the law and it looks a little different. So what was your experience when you first started practicing?
Well, I will say when I first started practicing, I am fortunate enough that my supervisor is another African American female. But I will say, oftentimes when I went to court, when I attended depositions, I was always the only Black female in the room. Because I was so young as an assistant city attorney, I started off when I was 26 years old. I was always considered or thought to be the court reporter, the assistant. Oh, are we waiting on the attorney? Mm-hmm. I got those kinds of questions. So it was discouraging at first, but I know that what really helped me was to have other women that I can talk to and that could share their experiences with me and to encourage me and to give me positive advice about how I can deal with different situations because the practice of law is not diverse. And how do you confront different challenges? So I think that's really helped me. And I've tried to become that person for other students coming right out of law school that experience similar issues and how to navigate the practice of law.
Nice. And then so you said there's this network of women. Can you tell me where you found this network of women? I know your supervisor is one, and I know you're involved in voluntary bar associations. So can you talk a little more about that?
Yes. So I'm involved with the Fred G. Minnis Bar Association. We're the African American Bar Association in Pinellas County. So that was a great resource for me. I found Black women lawyers that practice in my field. So there's a group of us that do practice labor and employment law. So I was able to reach out to them. I also sit on the standing committee for diversity and inclusion for the Florida Bar. So I have people that I was able to connect with on that committee. So just different aspects. Also in my church, I had 2 or 3 attorneys that I can talk to as well. So just different areas where I can really use different people as a resource.
Yeah, and it's a small world. The Tampa legal community is really small because we were chatting and we realized, you knew my former boss really well. And I had that a lot. Like I'll talk to someone like, wait, I know so-and-so, and then it's a small world. So definitely have to not only reach out to that network because they'll connect you to a lot of people, but be careful.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We all make mistakes and fall short, but you definitely don't want to mistreat anyone or be mean or sloppy or just, you always have to be conscious of how you're presenting yourself, even if you're being casual. Right. So do you have any last words that you want to offer to our listeners?
What I will say to all of those that are interested in becoming an attorney, what is important to know is ultimately, yes, you will have mentors and you'll have people that guide you, but you ultimately run your own race. And I think that's important to remember is that everybody runs their own race. You don't necessarily have to do things the same way as someone else to get the same results. Just trust yourself, what you learn, your goals in life, your community, your faith, whatever it is that you believe in to guide you, and just know that you don't have to be like anyone else.
Nice. Thank you so much, Danielle Martin, for joining us on the Journey to Esquire podcast.
You're so welcome.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to one of the law students in the Journey to Esquire Scholarship and Leadership Program.
Hello, my name is Abigail Dean, and I am a 2L at Stetson University College of Law. I wanted to become a lawyer because I knew that I would be good at the practice of law, and it also creates a space for me to help people. I am currently a Journey to Esquire intern, and so far my experience has been wonderful. I've gotten an opportunity to meet a variety of lawyers, especially in the field of law that I want to practice in, which is criminal law. And so being able to expand my network through this program, I've also got to create friendships through students at other law schools at Cooley. And so my experience has been really cool.
We just passed the mic to attorney Danielle Martin. In her time with us, she left us with 3 key takeaways. Number 1, she spoke about racial and gender diversity. Number 2, she spoke about diversity resource committees. Number 3, she encouraged viewers to run their own race. Journey to Esquire would like to thank attorney Martin for taking the time out to join us on the podcast. We encourage our listeners to read the show notes attached to this episode for more information about the guest and the organizations mentioned.
I'd like to give a special thanks to all of our supporters, especially our JD level sponsors, U.S. District Courts, Middle District of Florida's Bench Bar Fund, and Agape Christian Bar Preparation Services, Inc. for their generous support. I'd also like to thank WMU, Cooley Law School, Tampa Bay campus for providing a space for the recording of several of the episodes of this podcast. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of Journey to Esquire, the podcast. Support, share, subscribe. And for more, visit www.journeytoesquire.com.